Time now for the ultimate roundtable. Discussion, debate, passion, and fun, all rolled into one opinionated show about fantasy sports and much more. Let's meet today's guests.
Jeremy Latta is the GM of the Elite Assassins, who finished 7th in the Ore Division. Donny Tulk is the GM of Kamikaze, who finished 5th in the Ore Division. Rob Conte is the general manager of the Godfathers Hockey Club, who finished 5th in the Gretzky Division. And Nick Utley is the general manager of the Outlaws, who finished 1st in the Howe Division. Gentlemen, thank you very much for being a part of the very first roundtable. And we'll start things off with our first topic, and that is, what player in the UFHL consistently fills out the most stat categories? Who is that guy that fills them all out? Jeremy, let's start with you.
Well, we're pretty new to the UFHL, but looking at the categories, I think that it's probably got to go to a guy like Brad Marchand. It seems that a gritty forward that can still have elite scoring is kind of the guys that I'm gonna look for. I think Brad Marchand's the guy.
I'll go with Brady Tkachuk on that one. He's doing so much at a young age. He's putting up every stat in every category. He scores goals. He hits like crazy. He takes penalties. You name it, he does it. And at such a young age, to me, it's miraculous, honestly. And another guy that's comparable to him is his brother. And I think he's going to outdo him.
Yeah, I have to agree. Brad Marchand would be my pick for sure. But I think a lot of it is where he plays. I mean, Boston is known for their play in the gray area. They're coached that way. They're put together that way. So he just fits right in there in Boston. Goes out there and gets those power play points and penalty minutes, and he hits the scatter person. I mean, he's great. But shout out to Joe Pavelski, who's been doing it for years. He's been a multi-cat guy his entire career.
I'm going to have to agree with everybody so far, because I think that's, when you're talking about multi-category studs, I believe it starts with Marchand, and I think the next level would be Brady Tkachuk, who's probably going to take the mantle as soon as this coming season. I don't know. What I love about Marchand, though, is how he's not only capable of taking over a game, he's a beast on the power play, kills penalties. But I think the fact that he's more mature, he's showing the fact that he's learned to reel in kind of the antics and the sideshow Bob type of stuff that we were getting used to the last few seasons prior to the last couple, that hurt his team with suspensions and all that.
Yeah, I think Marchand all benefits a lot from being on Boston and also playing with Patrice Bergeron. I mean, he seems ageless as well. Those guys are pretty remarkable. What they can do as a combo, they're dangerous. They're two of the best players in the league as multi-point guys. So, I mean, to put them together, I mean, that's a great thing Boston's got going.
Next topic.
All right, our next topic that we're going to dive into, we go from multi-stat categories to multi-disappointments. Who was the biggest disappointment in fantasy hockey this year, whether it was, for a guy on one of your franchises in the UFHL or a different fantasy league? Nick, why don't you start us off with the biggest disappointment for you in fantasy hockey this year?
For me, it's a 1.5 kind of answer. Tony DeAngelo, to me, is hands down the biggest disappointment, but that's not necessarily based on how he plays. That's based on his attitude, I guess you could say. But mainly the most disappointing fantasy player for me is Erik Karlsson. He is not hitting his stats like he used to. He's very one-dimensional. If he's not putting up points, he doesn't really do much for a fantasy team. And on top of that, he costs you $11 million a year. So what you can do with that, I'm not totally sure. He's not someone in a salary cap fantasy league that makes sense for anyone, I don't think.
I don't think you can go wrong with Tony DeAngelo. That's certainly big disappointment. I think when I answer this question, it's kind of based on expectations and two people that didn't. It was PLD and it was Patrick Laine, and they both had super disappointing seasons for their respective franchise. Even though they got flipped for each other, they still neither really did well in their new home. I thought I was expecting much more out of both of those guys this year. I'm pretty disappointed in those guys.
Yeah, for me it would have to be. I can't argue with either one of the others guys, but for me it would have to be Dylan Larkin. I mean, I'm a super big fan of Dylan Larkin. I've had him in a million pools over the years, and it's just been disappointment after disappointment. He had one good year, I think, where he reached the top, but I mean, this past year was another disappointment. I'm just waiting for that next level, and I don't seem to be getting it. I think it's Detroit. Maybe Detroit's not there, but well, maybe that's all of it. But yeah, it's Dylan Larkin for me.
I guess for me, it would be Taylor Hall. Had some pretty high expectations for the situation he was going into with Buffalo, riding shotgun with Jack Eichel, and they've been so bad for so long now. And it just seemed like maybe this could be, they made some moves, new coach. It looked like maybe this could maybe be a little bit of a turning point for them. And for an $8 million hit, albeit on a 1 year contract, to get 2 goals, didn't really do anything to impact the game on any given night. And this is a former league MVP 2 years ago, and it's just really disappointing. And it probably speaks more to the culture in Buffalo, but he's never going to see that contract that he turned down in New Jersey, unfortunately.
By the way, kudos to Rob for the Godfathers mug in the back.
Yeah, you like that, huh?
That looks pretty awesome. I gotta say that that is absolutely beautiful. The logo work in this league and the work that the creativity that goes into it is so good. But yeah, the whole, for me, I'll just chime in quickly. The entire Buffalo Sabres, for what they sucked out of fantasy hockey this year, are the biggest disappointment. They literally sucked the fun out of fantasy for a lot of people.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you. I think they're clearly a tire fire. I mean, Reinhart wants out. Eichel wants out. Dahlin is not performing anywhere near a franchise defenseman should. That's been drafted first overall. I think there's an argument to say that Quinn Hughes could have gone first overall in that draft based on production at this point. And it's scary what's going on in Buffalo. They need to fix that fast.
Yeah, I feel like they've already tried to fix it like 5 times. That's the sad part. It kind of reminded me of the Atlanta Trashers, but Atlanta wasn't as bad.
It doesn't really seem like they're making any steps to fix this quickly either. They're haven't seen any major things come out of there to make me think that they're going to get this right next year. It seems to be another long rebuild here. Have you ever seen such a catastrophic fall from grace as Jeff Skinner? Just sign the $9 million contract and get like 4 goals. I haven't seen anything like it in the NHL in years.
I think there's no question at all that Jeff Skinner is currently the worst contract in the NHL. I mean, I thought we had a bad one with Louis Eriksson here in Vancouver. It's not close. He was terrible this year.
Yeah, I don't know how they're going to fix it. I know people keep pointing to the ownership and the Pagulas, and maybe they're just too involved, and it's one of those things where you just got to put the pieces in place and step away. I guess kind of like they've done with the Buffalo Bills, and that seems to be working out much better. But the carousel of new coach, new GM, introducing people with really no track record into places, got rid of their scouting staff. I just don't see the steps necessary in turning it around quickly.
Next topic.
What non-hockey sport are you most looking forward to when it comes to the ultimate franchise fantasy sport? And it could be a sport that is already been announced, or it could be a sport that hasn't, that you're just hoping ends up on the platform. Nick, let's start with you. What non-hockey sport are you looking forward to?
I am huge on golf. I want to be involved in golf. I want to be an owner of a franchise in golf. I'm the day that got announced, I was jumping for joy, and I was sitting at a pub when I found out, and I had a couple celebratory pints when I found out golf was coming.
Golf's pretty awesome. I don't know if you can go wrong. We're looking forward to buying a golf franchise if we can, but take the low hanging fruit in the football. That's going to be amazing. But I think that I'd be really excited if they could get an F1 racing or a NASCAR racing UFF. I think there'd be a lot of fun in that. That'd be my show.
I'm going to agree with what Jeremy had mentioned with the low hanging fruit there with the football. I just reading the press release and what they have planned. I'm not, as far as fantasy sports go, I don't have a long history with football. But if I can get involved in some capacity, I think it's something we would consider. It just seems very cool. And the type of people they have, the NFL alumni they have on board, and the celebrities on the Telegram that are coming on. I'm just super excited and super curious to see what these franchises are going to go for, because I think it's going to be pretty big.
Yeah, I think that's a loaded question. I mean, I really believe American football and baseball will be huge. I mean, just with their fan base. I mean, yeah, it's just going to be huge. But for me, it would be volleyball. In high school and growing up, even as an adult, I was a pretty competitive volleyball player. And even our AGM here at Kamikaze, Paul Eason, he was a very good volleyball player as well. So we've talked about it over time about the idea of a volleyball league, and we're pretty excited about that.
And just to touch base on the football from my end, I think that it's super exciting because what it's going to do for the platform, I mean, the possibilities are endless. It could make SCO skyrocket. Who knows? I mean, it's super exciting that they're doing this in Vegas, a live draft or end of the auction. I'm really looking forward to what the football starts for the rest of the platform.
What about non-sports that haven't been announced? Mention volleyball, mention some racing. What about sports that haven't been announced? What do you want to see?
Well, on a personal level, I've been pretty into bowling in my life, so I know it's kind of hard to know much about bowling, but it would be kind of cool if there was something like that eventually.
I think if you reached into the English Premier Dart Leagues, you could probably have something. They have a rabid fan base down there. You could probably do something real good with that. I think that would be a good one that we probably haven't announced.
I hadn't given it a lot of thought in terms of outside the major sports. I know obviously we haven't heard about racing and volleyball specifically, but I'm sure that's something that's going to be in the works. I don't know that I have anything, honestly, that I would look forward to. I enjoy bowling. I don't know that that's going to be something like Nick was saying. It's maybe it'd be interesting to see the spin they could put on that as far as UFF is concerned. But I guess I'm going to go with bowling.
Lawn bowling has actually been discussed as a possible. I mean, the sport possibilities are truly endless.
Has there been a CFL thing?
There has been CFL discussion, actually. Yeah, there's been, especially with Nick Lewis being a part of things with AO Sports. So there certainly has been discussion about a possible CFL league. Okay, let's get on to the fourth topic that we have here. And it is, what athlete do you wish you could have watched in their prime? Could be any sport. Let's start things off with Nick. Nick, what athlete in their prime do you wish you could have watched?
I think for me, I've always been big on hockey, so it's got to be a hockey player. And I never got to see this player play, but Bobby Orr, from what I've heard, he was just unreal on the ice, and I would have loved to watch him play. I don't think there's any defenseman that's ever played the game the way he does. Or did, and I would have loved to see that.
Being a little older, I got the chance to see Gretzky play, Dean. I'm like you. I lived in Edmonton my whole life, so that was nice. And sticking to hockey, Never got to see Eric Lindros play, and I, obviously got to see him on TV, but see him live. For players that, or for people that we haven't, I never got to see, because I would have to say Muhammad Ali. Got to see Tyson, but you never got to see Muhammad Ali live. Would have been the greatest experience of a lifetime.
Donnie?
For me, I'm a closet basketball fan, so for me it would have to be Jordan. I know I did get to see him. I'm old enough that I did watch him, but I don't know if I was old enough to appreciate him. And he was just so dominant in a sport. Like, you got to appreciate those athletes that just dominate a sport. And I mean, Jordan, we all know Jordan, he was the best ever. But yeah, I think Jordan, it would have to be 100%. I remember one time I went and watched the Toronto Raptors game, and it was Raptors versus Chicago, and this was the later years, and the Raptors had Stoudemire and those guys, and just got dominated. And I mean, a guy just owned the sport.
For me, I think I like what Donnie said in terms of, I'm old enough to obviously have watched Gretzky and Jordan, but the appreciation part and not having the I guess the advancement in technology and being able to watch every hockey game you want on any given night. I kind of missed out on, it was only if Gretzky was in town or played the Leafs that I got to kind of watch him. So you would read it in the papers and you'd hear about it, but you just, to appreciate what he was able to do, I would have wished I could have seen more of that live.
Is there a player in today's game that you haven't seen live that you really want to be able to?
For me, not hockey, but how can you not want to see Bryson DeChambeau right now? The way that guy hits the ball, like, how fun would that be to just follow him around the course for a day?
Well, I've gone to a lot of hockey games, but I haven't ever seen the Tampa or seen Kucherov and Vasilevsky, and Vasilevsky just being so huge and dominant. I think that would be an interesting thing to see Tampa live right now. They got $100 million team. It'd be nice to see that team live. Yeah. Probably won't see that again.
I'll take the easy one and just mention Connor McDavid. It's one thing that, you're just in awe watching him skate on TV. I couldn't imagine, because I always find when you're live how much smaller the ice appears, and they're just in and out of the zone so quick, and the game is so fast, and to have it sped up, he's, when you listen to a podcast and you're at 1.5 speed or 2 speed, and you can kind of hear the guys, and that's kind of how he plays. It's just so fast, and he's so much quicker than 95% of the league.
I'm going to move in. I'm going to move away from hockey, and I'm going to go into the bit of combat sports. But I'm going to have to say Conor McGregor. I think I would love to see him live. I mean, there's no guy that runs the sport or promotes the sport like Conor McGregor. I know he's taken a step back from that lately, but I still would like to see him live for sure.
Next topic.
All right, fifth, almost final topic, and thank you so much, gentlemen, for being a part of the show. Their very first one. What stat category do you want to see in the UFHL, and why? Let's start with Donnie on this one.
For me, the easy answer is blocks. I mean, I think it was supposed to be in the system at the start, and it just got worked out of it somehow, some way. But that's my easy answer. My not so easy answer is fights. I think fights should be part of the scoring system. I actually think penalty minutes should be a negative, and intimate fights as a positive. And I think that would be a better representation of what the NHL represents.
All right, before you guys get to your answer on what you have, what do you think on that idea?
I don't think that we should move penalty minutes into a negative. I think that you're looking at that's a job. Not every penalty is a bad thing. Sometimes they're good. I think it's always been one of those stat categories that matter. We want to differentiate between just a purely offensive player and somebody that can blanket stat categories. I I would be hesitant about taking penalty minutes out, although I think that fights should be some credit or bonus points in a penalty minutes. Maybe it's an extra 3 points for fighting. I actually could get aboard of that for sure.
I tend to agree with Jeremy. I think that if you were to, like, for example, if you took penalty minutes out, there's no way the Ice Vikings won this year. No chance. I think there's teams that have built around penalty minutes, and I don't think it would be fair to all of a sudden turn something that's a positive into a negative.
Yeah, I think I also agree with what Jeremy was saying. I hadn't thought about adding fighting as a bonus in some way, but it does make sense when you factor in that it's the most like hockey that we're trying to keep in mind. So while it's part of the game, as diminished as it's become, I think it serves a purpose, and I think it probably should be part of the league.
As to a rule change for me, I think blocked shots are something that probably are going to get implemented in the league, and I think they would be really great because they would bring the defensive players up in value, and I think currently they're a little bit behind the forwards and kind of hard. Although defensemen are obviously in demand, I think they're a little behind in like fantasy value at the moment. And by adding block shots, that would bring them up to the forwards a little bit.
Block shots should be a category that we have represented. It's positive in real life. You talk about it, oh, look at this guy's leading the league in block shots. That should be a reward. We should have that already. And if the GM should get behind putting that in. I agree with what was just said that we need to represent the defensive side of the game well. So block shots notwithstanding, another one that you could add is time on ice or shifts to the defensive players spend a lot of time on ice, and it could give another edge to those top four defensemen that are getting a lot of time on ice. I think that's one that I would add or think about adding, but block shots has to be added to our league for sure.
Yeah, it's unanimous. I think we all agree that block shots is probably the one that's the top of the list. And for the reasons given, I think it's important to prop up some of the lesser known players, the fourth, fifth, sixth defensemen, who have a job to do, and they're not going to get a lot of credit for a lot of the bigger things that most leagues run on. But in our league, it encompasses a lot of things that the real game portrays. So I think block shots helps prop up a lot of the lesser known D.
Rob, what would you look at for block shot evaluation? The same as what we do with hits? Would it be less? Where would it be kind of on par with?
In my opinion, I think it's a little higher than takeaways and giveaways. It's probably around hits, maybe on par with hits. Makes sense to me. And yeah, I think that's probably where it sits for me. Yeah.
Jeremy, what about you?
In the other leagues that I'm in, it's represented the same as hits, and I think it's worked well. I think it gives guys that, like Rob was saying, is that are never going to be on the power play and never going to get that time, but they spend their time grinding out 4 blocks a game. I think that definitely should have value. Hits, it should be represented the same as hits for sure.
Yeah, no question. I agree 100%. It should be the exact same as hits. I think that's a no-brainer. I think it's kind of like a more defensive stat. I mean, hits is kind of an all-around stat, but I think that'll bring things up to par a little bit for the lesser-known defensemen, like Rob said.
Donny?
Yeah, I mean, there's not much to say here. I disagree with everybody. No, I'm just kidding. I think they should be on par with hits. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Next topic.
All right, our final topic of the 4 remaining UFHL teams. Who do you think hoists the Klein Cup, and why do you think they will hoist the Klein Cup? And let's start with a guy who, at least finished first in his division. I mean, I finished last. Let's go with a guy who finished first. Nick, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to say my predictions were totally off, not even close. But I think it's pretty clear that if if Red Army gets by, if Montreal gets by, Red Army's going to pull it off. But if Montreal loses, I actually think the Ice Vikings are going to win it.
Donnie?
Yeah, it's funny because I'm going to say Red Army too, but more because I want the Habs to go on and win because I'm a Habs fan, as most of you are pretty well know. I think Luke done a real crazy thing there, taking all the Habs. I really didn't believe that they were going to go this far, but our AGM here at Kamikaze, Paul, he always says, when you enter these playoff pools, you got to be prepared to finish last. And I think Vito showed it there when he picked all the Minnesota players. Like, he just went for a run he just figured Minnesota was going to go on a run. So Luke done the same thing, and it paid off. And I hope that he's right.
Well, we had the Ice Vikings, or we had the Islanders and Vegas Knights in the final in our predictions. And so we're going to stick with that. And with that information, I'm going to say the Ice Vikings are going to take it. I think that Barry Trotz has got these guys playing such a defensively stifling game that even these high-flying Tampa Bay Lightning are going to fall prey to that. And Vegas is just on a mission. I don't think it's nice to want Montreal to win. I'm Canadian. It would be nice to see, a Canadian team hoist the cup, but I just don't think they got the horses to take Vegas in 7.
And I'm going to go with the Ice Vikings as well. It obviously gets blown up if Red Army can continue with their Habs players, but I think the Godfathers ended up picking the Islanders and Vegas in the final. So I'm with Jeremy on this one. We're gonna put our money behind the Ice Vikings to win it all.
We already did. As a matter of fact, I think the only difference in our playoff selections is I've got Vegas in 7 and you've got it in 6. And
I know.
Either Luke's going to win or one of us do. So
yeah, that's exactly.
You're a really genius. I just want you to know. I think you're super smart.
Yeah, likewise.
All right. Sorry to cut you off there, Dean. My apologies.
No, I was cutting you off. We were doing the draft show, Larry and I just was like, every time, well, first we were way behind because it went so fast, but Luke, every time he picked a Montreal Canadian, I'm like, okay. And then, they get on a roll. I thought they were going to get swept by Vegas. It didn't happen. So, I was here in 06. And people remember, certainly Jeremy would know what happened with Dwayne Rollison when he got hot, and Carey Price is a hell of a lot better goaltender than Dwayne Rollison was. So I don't know what's going to happen, but it would be really funny if Luke had the lead for so long and then, loses it, but then takes this crazy approach in the playoffs and wins it. It would be typical Luke almost. It would be kind of a Steinbrenner move.
I don't think any of us would be surprised. I think that, you cannot factor out Carey Price. He could absolutely steal that series and the Stanley Cup this year. But did you see that report on the difference between his regular season numbers and his playoff or Olympic numbers? Isn't that a little bit disturbing?
Yeah, I think you're right about Carey Price. If he pulls it off, Luke's going to be running away with this thing, and maybe he deserves it after leading the whole year and losing out at the last minute. So if they pull it off, I'll be happy for Luke.
I don't know that I'll be happy for Luke, but still a bit sore. But no, I think that the way it looks, if they can keep playing that team game, they gave Vegas some problems last night, and Carey Price is Carey Price. I'm a believer that it's entirely possible. I wouldn't put money on it, but I wouldn't have put money on them getting past the Leafs or Winnipeg, to be quite honest. So they've made me a believer in the team game that they play, and I think regardless, if they can somehow pull it off, whether they win the final or not, I'd say you got to make Carey Price your Conn Smythe winner, which hasn't happened very often in the losing side.
Yeah, I mean, in the playoffs, all you really need is your goalie to make 2 or 3 saves a game, that were guaranteed goal basically, and Price has been doing it pretty much every game. He's given his team a chance. The team in front of him is solid. They're not nothing special, but they're solid, and that seems to be what's getting them this far, basically.
Okay, well, that's going to wrap up the first ever Ultimate Roundtable. I know some of you guys got really practiced up with this because we had some technical problems in the early going, but really want to say thank you very much to all of you for joining us. Jeremy Latta is the GM of the Elite Assassins. Donny Tulk is the GM of Kamikaze. Rob Conte is the GM of the Godfathers. And Nick Utley is the GM of the Outlaws. Thank you so much, gentlemen. Have a great rest of the playoffs, and maybe we'll do this again sometime.
Cheers, guys.
Honor and a
Thanks,
privilege.
Dean.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Dean.
That's a wrap for the Ultimate Roundtable. Thanks to our panel of guests, and join us next time right here on the Ultimate Fantasy Sports Network.